Chicago, Illinois. It's become one of the most talked about mysteries in the WNBA this season. Angel Reese's day-to-day back injury. On paper, it sounds like a routine setback, the kind every player faces. But scratch the surface, and the story becomes much murkier. For the second time in her young professional career and following a familiar pattern from her college days, Reese has found herself sidelined with a vague diagnosis, absent from team travel, and missing key matchups. Most notably, she wasn't there when the Chicago Sky faced off against Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever, a game that would have put her in the national spotlight. Critics aren't buying the official explanation. They point to the timing. These absences seem to come during losing stretches or when Reese's personal numbers are slipping. They remember last season, when she abruptly ended her year with a wrist injury, just as LSU's momentum started fading. And they've noticed the eerily similar decision to skip out on the unrivaled league, citing another physical setback. Each time, there's no visible rehab presence at games. No warm-ups courtside, no public push to return, just radio silence. The optics are brutal. In a league fighting tooth and nail for attention, star players are expected to be visible, even when injured. Reese's absence from the bench, from post-game huddles, and from key road trips is creating an image problem that no press release can fix. To many, it's not just about a back injury, it's about commitment, professionalism, and the willingness to grind when the spotlight isn't flattering. And while her defenders argue she's simply protecting her long-term health, her critics believe this is part of a larger, calculated strategy to preserve her personal brand when things aren't going her way. The question hanging over Chicago now isn't, when will Angel Reese be healthy? It's, does Angel Reese want to be here when it gets tough? And that, more than any box score, might define her legacy in the eyes of fans and the media. Chicago, Illinois. If there's one thing sports fans remember, it's patterns. And with Angel Reese, a troubling one is starting to emerge, one that goes beyond any single season, injury, or headline. Look back at her recent history, and you'll find the same story told in different uniforms. The moment her numbers dip or the team hits a losing streak, she's gone. Whether it's the LSU Tigers or the Chicago Sky, her exits tend to come not after big wins or personal bests, but in the quiet, uncomfortable weeks where the scoreboard isn't in her favor. It's not speculation pulled from thin air, the evidence is in the timelines. Last WNBA season, she abruptly wrapped her year citing a wrist injury, just as her stats were leveling off and playoff hopes were dimming. Then came the offseason, when she was set to participate in the unrivaled league, a prime opportunity to showcase her skills, but again withdrew with an injury. This year, the same pattern. In the middle of the Sky's bumpy season, her production dipped, and suddenly a back issue appears, keeping her off the court and out of the public eye. For Reese's critics, this is no coincidence. They see it as brand management disguised as bad luck, a calculated retreat to avoid the harsh optics of struggling on the court. And in today's sports culture, where social media amplifies every missed shot and awkward turnover, some believe she's protecting her image at the expense of her team. Instead of battling through the slump in full view, she disappears, letting the narrative fade until she can return under more favorable circumstances. But here's the problem. This isn't just about stats or wins. It's about trust. Her teammates, coaches, and fans are left to wonder, will Angel Reese be there when the team needs her most? Or will she vanish when the pressure peaks? The greats are remembered for their resilience in the face of adversity. And right now, Reese's legacy is at risk of being remembered for something else entirely. An uncanny ability to be absent when the going gets tough. Chicago, Illinois. No matter how much Angel Reese might want to avoid it, the shadow of Caitlin Clark looms large over every conversation about her career. It's not just because the two faced off in some of the most talked about games in recent NCAA history. It's because their professional trajectories have taken dramatically different turns. While Clark is playing through bumps, bruises, and relentless defensive pressure, often staying in games even when she's clearly in discomfort, Reese is sitting out. And in sports, especially at the professional level, those optics speak volumes. When the Chicago Sky faced the Indiana Fever without Reese, it wasn't just another game, it was a headline event without one of its co-stars. The absence was glaring. Fans tuned in expecting to see the latest chapter in the Reese-Clark rivalry, only to be met with a no-show. And if there's one thing rivalries thrive on, it's consistency. Clark gives the audience what they came for: grit, visibility, and the chance for big moments, even in losses. Reese, on the other hand, left fans with an empty marquee. The media isn't blind to this either. Broadcasters and analysts openly point out the contrast. Clark's willingness to fight through adversity versus Reese's perceived tendency to step back when things get difficult. It's an unfair fight for public perception, because the narrative practically writes itself. One player's on the court battling through every obstacle, while the other is watching from home. And whether or not that's the full truth, in the court of public opinion, perception often beats reality. To make matters worse, every time Reese avoids a matchup with Clark, it fuels the suspicion that she's dodging direct competition. Even casual fans are asking, is Angel Reese avoiding the very rivalry that helped make her famous? It's a question she'll eventually have to answer, because as long as Caitlin Clark continues to grind it out in full view, the comparisons won't just continue, they'll get sharper, louder, and harder to ignore. Chicago, Illinois. If there was a single moment that crystallized the growing rift between Angel Reese and the media, it happened during a post-game press conference when a Chicago Sky reporter didn't hold back. The Sky had just lost, and Reese was absent due to her ongoing back issue. But instead of sticking to the usual injury update, the reporter shifted the tone hard. With the cameras rolling, he questioned not only the timeline of her recovery, but also her absence from the bench during games, pointedly asking if she thought that set the right example for her teammates. The exchange quickly went viral. Clips spread across social media, not because Reese gave a fiery comeback she wasn't even present, but because the bluntness of the question echoed what fans had been whispering for weeks. Why isn't Angel Reese with the team? Why no visible support? Why no travel for key matchups? And most importantly, why does it keep happening at the exact moments when the team is struggling the most? This wasn't just a reporter fishing for a headline, it was a reflection of growing media frustration. Journalists covering the Sky are tired of the vague, day-to-day injury updates and the radio silence from Reese's camp. In a city like Chicago, where sports stars are expected to be accountable to fans and press alike, that approach is a dangerous gamble. Chicago's media culture is famously tough. They'll press the issue until they get an answer, and if one doesn't come, they'll write the narrative themselves. The fallout from that press room moment has lingered. National sports shows picked up the story, with commentators debating whether Reese was being unfairly targeted or whether she'd brought the scrutiny on herself. In the age of viral clips, the court of public opinion moves fast, and this time, the jury seemed split. Some defended her right to privacy during injury recovery. Others saw it as a glaring example of a player avoiding accountability. But one thing's certain, the next time Angel Reese faces the press, every microphone in the room will be waiting for her to address this head-on. Chicago, Illinois. In basketball, there's a saying, even when you can't play, you can still show up. Great players understand that their presence on the bench, cheering, encouraging, and supporting teammates can shift the energy of a game. But in Angel Reese's case, that sideline support has been conspicuously missing, and it's quickly becoming one of the most glaring points of criticism. During her injury absence, fans noticed something that stung almost as much as the losses themselves. Reese wasn't there, not in the team huddle, not hyping up a big defensive stop, not high-fiving players as they walked back to the bench. For a team fighting for morale in a rough season, that absence is about more than optics, it affects the chemistry. When your star player disappears entirely from the game day atmosphere, it sends an unspoken message, intentional or not. You're on your own out there. Chicago's sports culture has little patience for that kind of detachment. Fans remember legends who sat in street clothes but still barked encouragement from the sidelines, mentoring rookies and celebrating every bucket like they scored it themselves. Reese's absence breaks that unspoken contract between player and city. Chicago doesn't just want stars, they want leaders. And leaders, even when sidelined, stay in the trenches with their team. It also feeds into a broader suspicion about her approach to adversity. Is her absence about physical limitations? Or is it a calculated move to control her image by avoiding the sight of her sitting through losses? In an era where every camera angle is broadcast to millions, even a frown on the bench can become a meme. Maybe Reese is avoiding that, but by not being there at all, Chicago, Illinois. Whether Angel Reese likes it or not, her career will always be measured against Caitlin Clark's, at least for now. The rivalry began in college, when their matchups pulled record-breaking TV ratings and set social media on fire. But in the WNBA, the comparison has taken on a different edge. one that's far more damaging for Reese's public image. Caitlin Clark has had her own share of physical challenges this season. Brutal hits, relentless defensive pressure, and the mental grind of being the league's most scrutinized rookie. And yet, Clark is almost always on the court. She plays through fatigue, through bruises, through nights when her shot isn't falling. In a blue-collar sports city like Indianapolis, that willingness to gut it out earns her loyalty points with fans and media alike. It's a badge of toughness, and it's one Angel Reese is conspicuously missing right now. Every game Clark plays that Reese sits out only widens the perception gap. It's not just about stats, it's about narrative. Clark is framed as the workhorse, the fighter, the player who refuses to hide from the spotlight even on her worst nights. Reese, by contrast, is being cast fairly or unfairly as selective, unavailable, and perhaps even soft. And because sports media thrives on direct comparisons, those storylines get repeated until they stick. This is compounded by the fact that Clark actively engages with the press, takes tough questions head-on, and doesn't shy away from accountability. Reese's more guarded approach, combined with her absences, feeds the perception that she's dodging both the competition and the conversation. It's not necessarily true, but in the court of public opinion, perception has a nasty habit of becoming reality. The problem for Reese is that the Clark comparison is unavoidable. Every missed game against Indiana is magnified. Every photo of Clark gritting through another hard-fought win is silently contrasted with Reese's absence from the bench. And every time that happens, the storyline cements itself a little deeper. One star is proving her toughness, the other is raising questions about hers. Chicago, Illinois. In this town, sports loyalty runs deep, but so does sports impatience. Chicago isn't just another market. It's a city that has lived through dynasties, heartbreaks, and everything in between. Fans here know the difference between a slump and a problem. And lately, the patience they initially had for Angel Reese is starting to wear thin. When Reese first joined the Chicago Sky, the hype was massive. She was marketed as a game changer, a personality big enough to draw national attention, and a talent capable of lifting the franchise. The city embraced her swagger, her confidence, her unapologetic style. But Chicago is a results-driven sports town, and it doesn't take long for the cheers to fade when the production doesn't match the promotion. Every no-show game, every absent bench appearance, every vague injury update chips away at the goodwill she built on arrival. At first, the refrain from fans was, "She'll be back soon." Now, it's shifting toward, "Is she even committed to this team?" And in a city where athletes like Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, and Candace Parker earn their place in the hearts of fans through grit as much as glory, the bar for respect is sky high. The real danger here is that once a city like Chicago turns on you, it's hard to win them back. They don't just want highlight reel moments, they want to see you in the trenches when things get ugly. They want to know you're fighting for them as much as they're cheering for you. And right now, Reese's absence in key moments is being read not as caution, but as disengagement. Media voices are starting to echo the sentiment. Local talk shows have begun asking if Reese is the face of the team or simply a face in the marketing campaigns. That's the exact type of framing that can snowball into a full-blown PR crisis if left unchecked. And given how quickly sports narratives solidify in this city, she may already be running out of time to flip it. Chicago, Illinois. At first, the press was kind to Angel Reese. Too kind, some might say. The rookie storyline, the college rivalry buzz, the LSU championship swagger, it all played perfectly into the WNBA's marketing machine. Reporters treated her like the league's new golden ticket, a walking headline generator who could boost ratings and social engagement with every quote or courtside outfit. But sports media has a short honeymoon period, and Reese's appears to be over. Slowly, subtly, the tone of coverage is shifting. Instead of Angel Reese is bringing energy to Chicago, headlines now read more like, "When will Angel Reese be back?" Or, "Reese absent again in high-profile game." It's a shift from celebration to skepticism, and it's not accidental. You can hear it in post-game press conferences when coaches are asked pointed questions about her status. You can read it in opinion columns that once praised her star potential but now question her durability. And you can sense it in the side-by-side treatment she gets compared to other rookies, especially Caitlin Clark. Where Clark is painted as a relentless competitor, Reese is increasingly framed as a mystery, a word that's almost always code for, "We don't trust the official story." This kind of narrative shift is dangerous because it's sticky. Once the media smells blood in the water, they won't let go until there's a resolution or a new target. And the thing about the WNBA media landscape is that it's small enough for storylines to echo quickly. A skeptical take in one major outlet gets picked up, paraphrased, and repackaged by others within days. Reese may not feel it fully yet, but the signs are there. Less glowing coverage, more probing questions, fewer social media clips highlighting her off-court personality, and more attention on her absence from big moments. It's not a full-on hit job yet, but the slow erosion of positive press can be just as damaging as a single bombshell scandal. In the public eye, it's the drip, drip, drip that eventually floods the room. Chicago, Illinois. In any professional sport, team chemistry is an invisible currency. It's the unspoken trust between players, the shared sense of mission, the subtle rhythm of knowing your teammate's next move before they make it. And in the WNBA, where rosters are small, and every player's presence matters, that chemistry can be fragile. Angel Reese's ongoing absences aren't just affecting box scores, they're affecting that chemistry. The Sky have had to constantly adjust rotations, experiment with lineups, and redistribute responsibilities on the fly. For a team still finding its identity in a competitive league, this constant reshuffling creates instability. Players who thought they'd be feeding off Reese's energy and inside presence are now building their timing and confidence with different combinations. You can see it in the subtle body language on the court: missed connections, hesitations, awkward spacing. When a key player isn't consistently in the lineup, everyone else is forced to adapt, sometimes in ways that pull them away from their strengths. And while professionals adapt quickly, they also notice when the rhythm they've been trying to establish keeps getting interrupted. There's also the emotional component. Teammates are professionals, but they're human. When someone is absent, whether for legitimate reasons or not, it changes locker room dynamics. Frustration can build silently, especially when the team is grinding through tough games without one of its core stars. No one will say it outright to the media, but the tension leaks in subtle ways, in how players answer questions, in how they celebrate on the bench, and whether that mutual trust still feels unshakable. In the best-case scenario, Reese returns soon, reestablishes her role, and rebuilds that chemistry. But every game she misses makes that harder. Chemistry isn't a switch you flip. It's built through repetition, through shared battles, through the grind of the season. Right now, the Sky are having to do a lot of that without her, and if that continues, even a healthy return might not instantly restore the magic. Chicago, Illinois. No matter how much Angel Reese or her supporters might want the conversation to move on, the Caitlin Clark comparison is here to stay. It's one of the league's most talked about narratives, and it's fueled by everything from their college rivalry to their rookie seasons in the WNBA. But lately, that comparison has taken on a sharper edge and not in Reese's favor. Caitlin Clark has been on the court, game after game, pushing through injuries, taking hits, and still delivering highlight-worthy performances. She's not just playing, she's elevating her team's visibility and competitiveness. Every time she has a big game or pulls off a clutch moment, it becomes a silent rebuke to Reese's absence. The optics are brutal. While Clark is grinding in the spotlight, Reese is watching from the sidelines, sometimes not even in the arena. The media plays into it. Broadcasters love to juxtapose Clark's stat lines with reminders that Reese hasn't suited up in weeks. Social media amplifies it with side-by-side clips. Clark sinking a three-pointer while Reese is shown in street clothes. It's an unspoken narrative that suggests one rookie is fulfilling her promise while the other is struggling to live up to hers. Even Chicago fans are noticing. Some have started openly saying that the Sky missed out by not having a Clark-like figure leading their charge. It's an unfair comparison in many ways. Different play styles, different positions, different team contexts, but fairness doesn't always factor into public perception. In sports, the player who shows up consistently wins the benefit of the doubt, and right now, that's Clark. If Reese wants to shake this comparison, she can't just match Clark.